Yesterday I talked about how Bethesda Game Studios union members, or as they call themselves, 1BGS, were protesting outside the ZeniMax offices. They were protesting the layoffs from ZeniMax and Microsoft, saying things like, "We are very talented people that make great games. How can you lay us off? Players love us," and stuff like that. It was like some of the most out of touch comments you could imagine, because as I pointed out, and as everyone pointed out, Bethesda has not been making games that people love for like 10 to 15 years or so. And I've since found additional video coverage of their protest. They made like a really silly, immature music video, like as if that's gonna help, like, you know, get them support or something. Now, I call it silly and immature, but that's my perspective. You know, from their perspective, they view this as like super based, like mature professional behavior. Because again, these people are very out of touch. And for anyone not familiar with why no one is supporting this protest, except like, you know, a few dozen people on Blue Sky, the fact of the matter is modern audience people like this have been invading various industries for years and actively making those industries worse, literally only getting involved so they can try and push their political rhetoric. We've of course seen this in gaming, predominantly in AAA, but not just there, as you can also see this occurring in, for example, the English dubbing industry with a lot of English VAs and how they act online. Same exact hive mind rhetoric, same exact, oh, you gotta worship the SAG-AFTRA union. If you don't, we're gonna try and blacklist you from the industry and harass you. That's not even hyperbole, that literally does happen. And the same thing's been happening with this 1BGS union as well. In the video that I mentioned that I found, this like music video they made, they literally have lyrics talking about how like if you don't support their union, you're like a horrible person and a scab. The fact of the matter is, a lot of these unions are really corrupt and they don't actually help workers. There's a lot of good reasons to not want to be a part of the unions, especially SAG-AFTRA. That one I'm more familiar with. I've done a lot of research into SAG-AFTRA. 1BGS is a newer union I'm less familiar with, but nevertheless, not everyone wants to join a union, and there's a lot of reasons not to. These people, like I said, they'll blacklist you, harass you, smear your name, do whatever they can to ruin your life if you don't join them. But right before I made those examples with the unions, I did mention that there were various industries where these sort of people have been invading and then ruining with their corruption. I'll give you a few more examples really quick with less detail, but you've also seen this in comics, you've seen this in tabletop gaming, you've seen this, like I mentioned, in dubbing and English localization as well, and the list goes on. But as for 1BGS, like I said yesterday, it's really funny that these people in this union are now they're coming out doing a whole protest saying that they're against corporate corruption only once they've been laid off. All these years that they were happily working at one of the most notoriously corrupt AAA corporations out there, they said nothing about it. They were all fine with it. But hey, once they get laid off, guys, we're for the players. We support the players. We're against the corruption. Yeah, no, you just want your job back. And it's very important to understand the strategy that unions in this sector use. For example, 1BGS, or going back to SAG-AFTRA, they openly talk about how they need public support. So these people will gladly gaslight you and lie to your face if they think they can win your support for whatever their goal is. But here's the good news. It's now pretty well established by 2026 how corrupt these people are, and so most people, they don't fall for these schemes, thankfully. They can see right through it. All right, serious talk done. Now we can have some fun here. So I made this tweet yesterday after my video. This thing's been popping off. Oh my gosh, thank you all for the likes and retweets and everything. So it was basically a recap of yesterday's video, which, you know, the video was like, I think just under 11 minutes long. So this was obviously not really a recap, just a really quick TLDR, little compilation of the strike from yesterday. Let me also point out this ratio really quick though. This is crazy good, like 19K likes, 1900 comments. So a ratio of 10% replies to likes. Dude, I've seen some tweets on Twitter where they're like trying to own the chuds and the tweet will get like 120,000 likes. And then like 300 replies, and all the replies are just like laughing at the OP. So my point is, there's definitely a discussion to be had about bots on Twitter and like botting the tweets that are trying to own the chuds and all that. But that's a discussion for another day. Just something interesting I happened to notice. But the reason that I'm taking a look at my tweet here is because I want to give people credit where credit's due. I saw some people in my YouTube comment section and also the Twitter comment section here pointing out how there was this one guy in the background of the protest who's literally got a tattoo on his neck of the hammer and sickle. And then this guy aside, there's some other funny comments I want to take a look at too. But let's talk about this first. We're starting here. So this comment says, these are the exact kind of people they needed to fire. Things are looking hopeful, but depends on if they just hire new activists to replace these. And this response from Kaguya's Top Gal says, this is why your Fallout games are now poorly made communist gay propaganda. This is something I've never understood either. Like, if you're a communist And or if you're LGBT, why would you ever support like this is your representation? Like, oh yeah, dude, the trashiest looking guy with the tackiest tattoo. That's great. That's a great look for us. What a Chad. And again, let me point out the irony of people like this working at one of the largest, most corrupt AAA corporations out there. Hey, I'm a communist. I even got a neck tattoo of the hammer and sickle. By the way, thanks Bethesda for the paycheck. I appreciate it. Wait, I got laid off? No, give me my job back. I want to work at that corporation. It's just such a LARP. It really is. And it's like, this is a grown man. Sad. Sad, truly. Although, it's still also pretty funny. Speaking of funny, you guys got to see this exchange. So I got this response that says, this is what is making your Fallout game. And then this response says, well, not anymore, lol. The OP is like, very true. Let's see if we can find him really quick. So there's the communist guy with the neck tattoo.
Was that player?
And again, I totally missed this guy yesterday, so I'm really glad people pointed that out because I would have not noticed that, and that added another layer of comedy. Now, where's the lady from that other picture? Oh, there she is. You can see right there. But now, as a generous reward for your patience, I will show you a new clip that I mentioned at the beginning that I found more of their strike. So take a look at this lady.
Choices fucking matter. They tell us every single day. We make games for our players. Every single choice in our game fucking matters.
So it's kind of hard to understand what she's saying, and especially hard to understand her point. But I think she was saying something like this. Your choices matter. You tell us every single day. And then she's pointing to the ZeniMax offices that are presumably off screen. So that seems like a management thing that they tell the devs, right? Like, your choices matter, presumably. That's what she's getting at. But then she says, we make games for our players and every choice in our games matters. So this could be interpreted a few different ways based off the prior context. Like, every design choice in the game matters? Or is it that, like, the players' choices in the games matter? Either way, I find it funny because it's like, okay, they're either taking credit for their choices, like their design choices on games like Starfield, Bethesda's latest release, which was really not good. I'm biting my tongue on that. Personally, I think it's a horrible game. But some people, they're like, it wasn't bad. It was just boring. I think it's awful. I really do. I even gave it a really fair shot. I'm embarrassed to admit I played like 100 hours of Starfield. I liked it for like the first 15 hours. And then I really didn't like it at all. But I still spent, to be fair to me, really quick, I know I'm kind of running on with this story, but to be fair to me, a good 40 hours or so of that 100 is probably from just like messing around with the ship creator. Because the ship creator is like the one thing in Starfield I think they actually did pretty good. But then actually using the ship itself is the most boring, pointless thing ever. So it's like you make a good creator for the shipbuilding, but then it literally doesn't matter. It's so disappointing. I could go on and on about Starfield. I'm gonna stop there to save us a 30-minute rambling about Starfield here. My point is, it's funny that they want to take credit for that. Like, our choices matter. Okay, great. You made Starfield wonderful. Am I supposed to clap? Like, that's not... Hold on a second. It reminds me of... there was a dev who, like, put in their bio that they worked on High Guard. You remember this? Like, a few months ago. They had, like, High Guard in their bio, and then they ended up like removing it once High Guard got shut down and all that. They like removed it from the bio. The reason it was so funny though is because that dev was like publicly defending High Guard. They were like saying how glad they were to work on High Guard and how people are wrong and not giving it a fair shot and blah 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 blah. And then even they ended up removing from their bio the High Guard thing. That was funny. We've seen a couple examples of that. Anyways, the last thing I'll say too is there's like some irony here to this, with the fact that so many AAA games have tried to sell players over the years this concept of your choices really matter, guys. In this game, your choices are going to matter. And then we find out they really don't. They just don't matter at all. Like, you might get a slightly different dialogue option, but that's massively different from how much they overstate how much the choices will actually matter. Now, I'm not saying that the lady in the clip where she's like yelling into the mic was talking about that part. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. I really don't know. I think she was probably just talking about more of like their end of things, not the player's experience. But like, it's still funny to me. There's still that like bit of irony there. And routinely, like I've said, we keep seeing these people try to act like they're standing up for the players now, which is actually getting annoying. Like I said yesterday and in this video as well, these people have not been standing up for us at all. But when they get laid off, they're acting like they have, like they're our champion, just so they can try and get our support on their protest. I mean, it's so scummy. And so going back to this clip, after the lady is yelling in the mic, they continue the music video thing that I mentioned before. And the whole time, the song is a newer punk it's a punk cover of a 1931 song called "Which Side Are You On" from Florence Reese. And this is another example of how gigantic of LARPers these Bethesda Union people are. Because that song was written in 1931 during an actual violent strike where you had these coal miners being forced to work long hours for less pay in very dangerous conditions. So they were striking for better conditions, which, you know, actually pretty understandable. The company didn't like that. They sent in like armed guards, and there was even shootings that broke out during this strike. And so this song was made during all that. The song, "Which Side Are You On?" But nowadays, we're not talking about the 1930s during the Great Depression. We're not talking about these coal miners who are working in very unsafe, dangerous conditions and literally got shot at by their employers. No, now we're talking about these modern audience devs who see the struggles of those people in the 30s and they selfishly and egotistically think, like, wow, they're just like us. Like, dude, how insulting. And a lot of these people, important context, a lot of these people were on temporary contracts to begin with. There's even some of them that have been on video saying that they were on a temporary contract and they've had multiple contracts and they fulfill the contract, they get paid, and then maybe they get another contract or maybe they don't. But sometimes they don't, and then they act like they've been laid off. And that's not actually a layoff. That's just normal business. Like I said yesterday too. Actually, excuse me, this was not yesterday. I think it was 2 days ago in a different video. I mentioned how a lot of these people, they're on temporary contracts like any contracted person would be. And then when the job's done, they're not always brought back. And that's normal. You can't expect to have a temporary position and always be brought back. That's not how it works. But these people then act like they've been, you know, greatly wronged and that they're owed a perpetual job when they've already completed the contract and been paid for it. They go to some union like BGS, like one BGS, and then try to gaslight the public to support their protest or whatever it is that their current goal is. And they're being very dishonest this entire time. And then in games journalism, you'll have some corrupt Kotaku journalist or PC Gamer journalist or The Gamer, whoever it is. I'm kind of just, you know, naming some outlets right now that often support this sort of thing. They'll then falsely conflate together employees that are on temporary contracts and employees that are actually laid off who are on salary. And all of it is just really disgusting manipulation and lies. And like I said, they do this with the goal of trying to get the public to support them. Now, why do they need to lie so much? Why do they need to misrepresent things so much? Why do they need to be so manipulative? I just take that as them not actually having a very good point. If that's how desperate they are, that they can't be honest about this stuff. And we've seen this from so mane examples too. Look at the Hoyoverse situation that I cite very often. Those VAs, those English VAs that were trying to get the public to support their strike against Hoyoverse got exposed as being a bunch of liars who are all essentially trying to monopolize the industry and strong arm any VA that wasn't a part of their union into losing their jobs. Then they'll turn around and say that they care about the workers when it's like, dude, you people were trying to get them fired. But yeah, I think that's all the main stuff, so I'll leave it there. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.